to the objective. Escort us to the train yard. We did it!
I think we can all agree Sledgehammer is almost the king of innovation when it comes to the Call of Duty franchise. Now, before you disagree with me, let me start this off by saying they completely turned the Call of Duty series around when they released Advanced Warfare. Some people liked it, some people didn't like it. It was definitely innovation, but it was different innovation. And the reason I say that is because they essentially almost took away the roots of Call of Duty by introducing us to the exoskeleton, but they almost made up for it with some of the mechanics they had in multiplayer and their Exo Zombies experience. Their campaign looked beautiful, and I thought they did a fairly good job with some of those characters. Wasn't the best story, but still pretty good for their first take on a Call of Duty game. Now, they then did a 180 for their 2017 release of Call of Duty with World War II. They first introduced us to this advanced movement, and now they took all that away and brought us back to the roots of Call of Duty. So yes, in a way, they are the king of innovation since they made the most changes to the franchise in the past couple of years. Yes, Treyarch and Infinity Ward did a lot for the series. They made the series what it is today, but Sledgehammer Games took the most risk with this. And with World War II, they took a risk with putting us in a setting which is huge historically. There's so many events, so many weapons, so many fucking settings and maps they can come up with. There's so much shit that I almost think they got overwhelmed. But I've talked about this before. Activision supposedly had told Sledgehammer Games to scrap their work on an Advanced Warfare 2, which Sledgehammer Games was already working on. So it's not clear as to how far they got with Advanced Warfare 2, but if they were pretty far, then it does explain why World War II at launch feels like it's missing some content. It's missing some multiplayer maps, it's missing more war maps, maybe some more variety to the weapons. It's missing a couple of things which would really polish the game and build the longevity of World War II itself. But when it comes to innovation, here we go. War and Headquarters. So starting off here with War, as the description says, it is of course a new game mode where players must work as a team to defeat the enemy. This narrative-driven multiplayer experience immerses players in iconic World War II battles, Allied and Axis forces, clash in team-driven assault, and defend missions for key strategic objectives. So this right here is a perfect example of something they really innovated on. They took all the game modes we're all used to, put it in the game, but they introduced it to something completely different. War. We've never seen anything like this within the Modern Warfare trilogy or even the Black Ops trilogy. This right here is gold, but unfortunately, I'm already maxed out from Operation Breakout. I played the shit out of it during the multiplayer beta, which occurred in August for PlayStation 4 and also Xbox One. So playing that again on launch is a little bit overwhelming. I'm a little tired of it, but we of course had two other war operations. We have Operation Neptune and Operation Griffin, which to me are extremely exciting, but will play like shit if you have a bad team. It's of course perfect for the theme of World War II. It fits very well with D-Day and some other events as well, but looking at this, we only have 3 operations of war here in World War II. One of them is already exhausted since everybody played the shit out of it during the beta, so let's say 2, okay? And we're only getting 1 new operation per DLC. I'm grateful for it nonetheless, don't get me wrong, but don't you think having 5 to 7 operations of war at launch would have been gold, because then we would have almost 11 or 12 in total after the 4 DLC packs. And even with that, I would have at least hoped for maybe 2 to 3 new war operations per DLC. Let's change the content that's included within our traditional map packs. Come on, let's have 4 multiplayer maps, 2 to 3 new operations for war, or new zombies maps, new zombies game modes, new weapons. Let's throw more into our DLC. Why is it this fucking short end of the stick every year? I just feel like developers maybe want to do more, but they just can't because they are, of course, under control by Activision. You know, I think with the way Sledgehammer's doing their DLCs this year is very interesting. We're, of course, going to get 3 multiplayer maps, 1 new war map, and 1 new zombies map, which of course sounds pretty cool, but think about this. 2 of those multiplayer maps will hopefully be new, while 1 of them will be a remake. Then we have, instead of a 4th multiplayer map, we have that replaced with just 1 war operation, which people will probably play the shit out of at launch of that DLC and get bored of it fairly quickly and only have 1 new zombie map. Well, come on, where's the variety? Bring in some new zombie game modes, some different orders, cool shit, come on. I feel like developers are able to do it. It's right there at the fucking tip of their fucking fingers, and they just can't do it. It's just fucking bullshit how much potential games like these have. You know, war, as I've said earlier, is the step in the right direction, but it's just not enough, at least for me, for the launch of such a huge and iconic Call of Duty game taking place in such an iconic war. And it's not a cool war because all these people died. It's what I would consider a cool war because there's so many cool elements behind it in terms of why the war happened, whose fault it was, who banded together to make a huge alliance. There's so many cool elements of the war which make for a great story-driven narrative here within the campaign, multiplayer, and even zombies. So once again, war is phenomenal. Hopefully Sledgehammer Games brings it back in their next Call of Duty. Hopefully Treyarch and Infinity Ward brings something similar to the table with this narrative-driven game mode like that. I just think it's phenomenal, but it's just not enough. That's all I'm going to leave it at for war. But in terms of headquarters, this is definitely what Call of Duty needed. A refreshing social space where we can open supply drops in front of our friends, show off what we got, go to this gun range and face off against your friends, complete different challenges, see different Easter eggs in the gun range. Then we have our quartermaster, of course, where we can buy supply drops. We can see collections, which are, of course, similar to Modern Warfare Remastered and how Raven Software handled their DLC weapons. We can craft our items with our salvage, or we can just open them up in supply drops, or we can even go to Major Howard and look at what orders are available. And sometimes we'll have an order which, let's say you have to complete 50 multiplayer matches, it'll grant you with one of the new DLC weapons. That is, of course, the best way to do DLC weapons in a Call of Duty game. If you're going to have this gay-ass system with supply drops and bullshit cryptic keys and COD points, if you're going to have all that shit, at least have just one fair way to unlock the weapon without paying $1, even if it's grinding ridiculously for hours on end. At least it's something. Treyarch did not have this. Infinite Warfare kind of had this, and Modern Warfare Remastered didn't have challenges to unlock the weapons, but you, of course, were able to craft them using salvage, and getting salvage wasn't that hard in Modern Warfare Remastered as long as you played the game. That was a free way to get what you want. World War II expanded on that with Modern Warfare Remastered's method, but also on top of that added this new order system, which is great, and you can see all that here in Headquarters. You can't change your orders without being in Headquarters, which is a bit of a disappointment, but at launch, Headquarters was broken. You couldn't be in this huge social space with everybody as you can now. It was a bit empty. You were only in it with maybe 1 or 2 people. For me, I was in it with no one unless I was in a party with some of my friends. That was about it. But once Headquarters worked, it really fucking worked. It was a great way to meet new people, to see these nice leaderboards. We, of course, have this 1v1 pit, which is awesome. Again, fantastic innovation. I don't know how Treyarch or Infinity Ward are going to top this, but this is something we need for a franchise that is honestly the same every single year. You know, you have your different stories, your different weapons, your different settings, your different characters, but how different can you really get? And I think Sledgehammer Games proved everybody wrong with the idea that Call of Duty can't innovate. And it can, but what I was saying earlier with War is that I feel like Activision is holding them back. They're so ready to do so much, but there's just this rush, this forced release date for a Call of Duty game, all this bullshit with DLC and their map pack season. Sledgehammer Games wants to do more, but simply can't, and I'm going to stick with that theory right now. I think they could have done so much more with this game with how huge World War II is. They could have added so much more, but they just couldn't. The resources weren't there, the time wasn't there, they just couldn't do it. So along with Headquarters, you know, you could, of course, prestige your divisions over here. You could, of course, go to this theater section, which I talked about in an earlier video from a couple weeks ago, you know, this is where you can watch MLG events and, you know, all types of cool shit with the Call of Duty community. But this right here was perfect for a theater mode, as we saw within the Treyarch games and even Modern Warfare 3. Sledgehammer Games co-developed Modern Warfare 3, and that game had theater mode, so I'm not sure if maybe they weren't even a part of that process of how theater mode worked in Modern Warfare 3, but I was hoping they would have brought it back, but I guess they just can't nail it like Treyarch does, and they're probably not ever going to, so we'll leave it at that. But once again, it looks beautiful. You can test kill streaks as well, which is awesome. Once again, something the franchise desperately needed. But as to whether or not we'll see the return of this mechanic in future Call of Duty games, that's up to the developers, but this right here is a step in the right direction. And there was supposed to be a zombies headquarters according to recent leaks, but that got scrapped. And once again, I'm going to blame it on resources and development time. There just wasn't enough of it to accommodate for a zombies headquarters. That would have been fucking cool. I can't even imagine what that would have been like. But for multiplayer, it's spot on. They did what they wanted to. It works. You could have so many people in this social space at once. I could play a 1v1 for hours with random ass people. I never get bored. It's pretty interesting. But let me know what you think down below in the comments. Did Sledgehammer Games make the right decision when it comes to innovation for Call of Duty? I can't blame them for all the faults of this game. I do think Activision is to blame for most of the faults. I'll be talking more about that in my upcoming full review for this game. But Headquarters and War, perfect examples of what can be done to a dying franchise if given the time necessary to do so. And I think with the time they were given by Activision's greedy ass, they did quite a bit with War and Headquarters. But thanks so much for watching. This has been dkdynamite. Peace.